Tonight we begin with a story of silence, a silence that speaks volumes about the state of our nation's economy. It's a silence that echoes across vast stretches of normally bustling industrial landscapes. Across America's busiest ports, from the sun-drenched docks of Los Angeles to the busy terminals of New York, the usual roar of machinery, the constant hum of activity that defines these vital hubs, and shouts of longshoremen, the hard-working men and women who keep goods moving day and night, have faded into an unsettling quiet. A stillness that hangs heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the frenetic pace we've come to expect. Colossal cranes stand idle, their massive arms frozen in place, guarding what feels like a ghost town, a silent testament to the economic forces at play. This isn't a temporary pause, a brief lull before the next surge of activity. It's a dramatic halt in the lifeblood of the American economy. A slowdown that threatens to have far-reaching consequences. The intricate web of global trade, the complex network of ships, trains, and trucks, which has delivered everything from smartphones, the devices that connect us to the world, to sneakers, the everyday essentials we often take for granted, is now under immense strain. The system is creaking, groaning under the weight of unprecedented challenges. The flow of goods has slowed to a trickle, a mere fraction of its former volume broken by escalating trade disputes and tariffs. These barriers are disrupting established routes and creating bottlenecks. The consequences are stark, visible in empty shelves and rising prices, threatening every aspect of daily life. From the availability of groceries to the cost of fuel, this is the front line of a trade war, a battle fought on the seas and in the markets, fought not with soldiers but with strategies and negotiations, but with sanctions, tariffs and restrictions, and economic policy. The weapons of modern economic conflict. Empty berths and unused containers, stacked high like monuments to inactivity, tell a story of canceled orders, of deals that have fallen through, and broken supply chains. A network once seamless, now fractured and strained. In the coming sections, we'll dive into the numbers, examine the statistics that paint a clearer picture, hear from those affected, the workers whose livelihoods depend on the flow of goods, and trace the ripple effects across the country. From coast to coast, no community is immune. This is about more than economics. It's not just about numbers and charts, it's about the fragility of the systems we all depend on. The intricate web that connects us all, and the potential consequences when that web begins to unravel. The data paints a grim picture, a stark contrast to the bustling activity we've seen in recent years. We're not just talking about a minor dip. The indicators are flashing red across the board. At the Port of Los Angeles, the nation's busiest port complex, cargo volume is set to drop over 35%. This isn't just a projection, it's a looming reality that port officials are grappling with. Next week, compared to the same period last year, the difference is staggering, a clear sign of the economic headwinds facing the industry. Shipments from China, the linchpin of global supply chains which make up nearly half the port's business, are experiencing significant delays and reductions. This slowdown has a ripple effect impacting businesses and consumers alike, have slowed to a crawl, creating bottlenecks and uncertainty throughout the supply chain. The once constant flow of goods has become a trickle. The Port of Long Beach, a crucial partner to Los Angeles, is bracing for at least a 20% reduction in volume, a substantial hit that will impact revenue and employment. In volume for the second half of the year. This projection suggests that the slowdown is not a temporary blip but a sustained trend. Diminished bookings from Asia, a key indicator of future trade activity, mean orders simply aren't being placed. Factories are idle, warehouses are emptying, and the demand for goods is waning. Shipping companies are pulling vessels from routes, a drastic measure to cut costs and adjust to the reduced demand. 34 blank sailings at Long Beach alone through June. These canceled voyages represent a significant loss of capacity and a disruption to established trade lanes. The Port of Los Angeles expects a quarter of its ships to be canceled in May, further exacerbating the situation and raising concerns about the port's long-term viability. This isn't a minor adjustment. It's not just a temporary slowdown that will quickly rebound. It's a fundamental disruption to global trade, a seismic shift that will reshape the way goods are moved around the world. The downturn is most acute on the West Coast, where ports rely heavily on Asian trade, but the impact is national, affecting businesses and consumers across the country. Global container port volume is projected to fall by 1% this year, a significant decline considering the industry's historical growth trajectory. With the U.S. at the epicenter, bearing the brunt of the slowdown and facing the most significant challenges. The National Retail Federation predicts, based on its latest analysis of import data, U.S. containerized import cargo will drop at least 20% year over year, a substantial decrease that will impact retailers' bottom lines and potentially lead to higher prices for consumers. The numbers are undeniable. The data speaks for itself, painting a clear picture of a struggling industry. The system is grinding to a halt, with ports facing reduced activity, shipping companies cutting routes, and businesses struggling to adapt. The effects are immediate and severe, with potential long-term consequences for the global economy. At the heart of this crisis is one word: tariffs. The latest round, up to 125% on Chinese goods, sent shockwaves through the global supply chain. For American retailers, these tariffs are a potential death blow, making many products too expensive to import. Major retailers responded by halting shipments from China, canceling orders, and freezing supply chains. The result, a dramatic logjam, with goods stranded and new orders on hold. Even global shipping lines are feeling the pain. Hapag-Lloyd reports a 30% cancellation rate on U.S.-bound shipments from China. The tariffs were meant to protect domestic industries, but instead they've disrupted the very supply chains America relies on. The intricate network built over decades can't be rerouted overnight. The fallout is now visible in empty docks and canceled voyages. The bustling activity that once defined American ports has faded, replaced by an unsettling quiet. This silence, a stark contrast to the usual cacophony of cranes and trucks, is mirrored by a similar stillness in China. At major hubs like Shanghai and Guangdong, the engines of global trade, operations have ground to a near halt. The relentless flow of goods has slowed to a trickle, leaving behind a sense of eerie calm. By mid-April, the impact was undeniable. Virtually no cargo ships were bound for the U.S. The vast ocean lanes, usually teeming with vessels, were eerily empty. This represents a dramatic reversal for what were once some of the world's busiest terminals, vibrant epicenters of global commerce. Shipping containers, packed to the brim with goods destined for American companies, now sit stranded, a silent testament to disrupted supply chains. They are caught in a geopolitical crossfire, victims of circumstances beyond their control. For Chinese manufacturers, the consequences are dire. Unpaid invoices mount and contracts are canceled, threatening their very survival. And for American retailers, it translates to a critical lack of inventory, leaving shelves bare and consumers frustrated. Export factories, the backbone of China's economy, have ceased operations, their gates now firmly shut. This has resulted in idling millions of workers, casting a shadow over their livelihoods and threatening regional economies. The halt in trade is a shared crisis, a lose-lose situation, not a victory for either side involved. Empty factories in Dongguan, once a hive of manufacturing activity, directly translate to empty shelves in Dallas, a tangible consequence of global disruption. Stranded containers in Shanghai, a visual representation of stalled commerce, pose a significant threat to businesses in Seattle, highlighting the interconnectedness of global markets. The deep codependence of the U.S. and Chinese economies, often overlooked, is now laid bare for all to see. Economic pain in one part of the intricate global system quickly spreads to all others, demonstrating the fragility of our interconnected world. The ghost ports, once bustling hubs of activity, now stand as a sobering reminder of our global interdependence and the potential consequences of disruption. The disruption at the ports is just the first domino. With containers no longer arriving, the trucking industry faces a halt by mid-May, threatening mass layoffs. Without new goods, warehouses and storefronts will soon feel the pinch. By early summer, empty shelves and declining sales will become a reality for American consumers. Scarcity will hit a wide range of goods, from electronics to apparel. Retailers facing empty shelves will be forced to cut costs, often starting with jobs. Mass layoffs in trucking and retail could trigger a vicious economic cycle. Laid-off workers spend less, further depressing demand and leading to more layoffs. Apollo Global Management warns this could culminate in a recession by summer. 60% of CEOs now expect a recession or slowdown within 6 months. The domino effect is in motion, and the fear is it may be too late to stop. The pain isn't spread equally. West Coast ports are at the epicenter. Los Angeles and Long Beach, handling a third of U.S. containerized cargo, are uniquely exposed to the U.S.-China trade conflict. A 35% drop in LA's cargo volume is a catastrophic blow, threatening Southern California's economy. Long Beach faces a 20% reduction and 34 blank sailings. The slowdown means fewer shifts for longshoremen, idle truckers, and empty warehouses. In the Pacific Northwest, the Port of Seattle claims normal operations, but the reality is less cargo and canceled orders. Some shipping lines may be diverting traffic, but the volume is down, sometimes by 30%. Even ports with diverse trade routes aren't immune. The crisis is national, but the epicenter remains in Southern California. The ripple effects are being felt everywhere. Economists and business leaders see a storm on the horizon. The consensus: these port disruptions are the start of a significant economic downturn. Apollo Global Management predicts a rapid slide from port stoppages to recession within months. The logic is simple: if goods don't move, neither does money. The National Retail Federation projects a 20% drop in U.S. containerized imports in the second half of the year. Retailers are pausing orders, signaling a lack of confidence in the future. 60% of CEOs expect a recession or slowdown soon, shaping their decisions to cut costs and delay investments. This defensive posture can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Even a 1% global drop in container volume is significant in an industry built on growth. The expert consensus trade restrictions are now actively undermining economic stability. The storm, brewed in Washington, is making landfall at our ports. Beyond the numbers lies the human cost. Every canceled container means a chain of real people at risk. Longshoremen face fewer shifts and shrinking paychecks. Truckers, the arteries of the economy, are parked and waiting for loads that never come. Warehouse and distribution center workers see less work as shipments slow. Retailers facing empty shelves are forced to cut hours and lay off staff. These are not just jobs, they're the fabric of communities. For millions, the trade war is now a clear and present danger to financial security. The uncertainty makes it impossible to plan for the future. The human cost is measured in sleepless nights and difficult conversations at the dinner table. The path forward is uncertain. For consumers, expect higher prices and fewer choices as supply chains remain disrupted. The era of endless variety may be ending, forcing tough decisions at the checkout. For workers, mass layoffs in trucking, logistics, and retail are a real threat. Policymakers must manage the fallout and seek a resolution before the damage becomes permanent. Globally, this crisis exposes the vulnerabilities of a system built for efficiency, not resilience. Nations and corporations will rethink supply chains, seeking diversification and stability. The silent docks are a wake-up call. Policy decisions have real-world consequences. The challenge now is to repair the broken links before the reckoning becomes a catastrophe.